Hello and welcome to F1 Talk. This is part 2 of the 2012 season review show, and in this particular episode we'll be looking at the Mercedes GP, Lotus F1 and Sahara Force India teams. But first off, I have to apologise for the lack of videos in the last month or so. There have been some events in my life that have gotten in the way of me writing the script for this and the actual recording of this particular video, so I am sorry and I do apologise for that. Now onto the video itself. And let's kick it off with Mercedes GP. 2012 marked their third year back in the sport, and in an attempt to give their engineers and designers the maximum amount of time to build a better car, the team was the final squad to unveil their 2012 Challenger. It was a risky move as they had very little testing time compared to the other teams. Even HRT had more testing time this season than Mercedes. To start the season, it looked like the gamble had paid off somewhat, with both cars in the top 10 shootout in qualifying 3 in Melbourne. This had rarely happened since the team returned in 2010, and the highlight of their year was in China. A phantom pole position lap in Monaco and a podium finish was all that the team basically did all season long after the said podium. Things went downhill fast after that, with disappointing results for much of the year. However, it was off track that things now began to build for the future as the team went all out to secure the services of Lewis Hamilton from 2013 onwards. Its development programme for 2014 looking similar to its 2009 way that they did it. They snared Hamilton away from McLaren with the promise that they should be the team to beat in 2014 when the new regulations take effect. The last time this happened was indeed 2009, where Brawn GP, Mercedes GP's former guys, took both championships in style, but as for right now, things can only get better. We will now take a look at the season of Michael Schumacher, and the 7-time world champion wasn't expecting miracles in 2012, but even he was hoping for a much improved season this time around. But despite the speed of the car early on in the season, Schumacher had the bad luck that once dogged his former teammates at Ferrari, retiring 5 times in the first 7 races of the year, and when he did finish, he scored 2 10th place finishes. Many of his 7 DNFs this year were due to bad luck. At least 2 times he had crashed into the Toro Rosso of Jean-Eric Vergne, who was fighting with Michael for position more often than not this season. Either through penalties, frustrations or the loss of greatness, the 43-year-old has once again decided to retire from Formula 1, this time he says for good. In which his only high point in his so-called second career was a 3rd place finish at the European Grand Prix in Valencia. His departure makes way for the arrival of Lewis Hamilton, who will lead the team into a new era, but no one can forget the legendary career of this once dominating force. As for my score for Schumacher in 2012, I have to look at his 3rd in Valencia as a plus point, but his crashes and retirements equals a lot of minus points, and for an honest score from me of 4.5 out of 10. And that's being rather generous. Now on to Nico Rosberg now, and the driver with the boyish model good looks stepped up slightly in 2012, taking his first ever victory from pole position in China. It appeared that F1's newest superstar had finally arrived, but unfortunately for Nico, he could not find the performance from the car for the rest of the season, despite a well-deserved 2nd place at Monaco. But like Michael, Rosberg had his share of retirements this year, not scoring a point after the night race in Singapore. He made some great headlines colliding with the Hispania of Carthagena at Abu Dhabi, but didn't match his brilliant display of China. Joining forces next season with good friend Lewis Hamilton will no doubt energise Rosberg to perform better and may improve his own results being matched with one of the top drivers in the sport. We will just have to wait and see what develops next season. For Nico in 2012, it was a story of up then down as the team struggled to keep the Toro Rossos behind them for the majority of the year. For that reason and his succession of non-finishes towards the end of the year, I'll be kind to give Rosberg a 6 out of 10. We now move to the Lotus F1 team, naming their car the E20, not after the UK television programme EastEnders, but because it was the 20th car the designers at the Enstone factory made. Lotus began 2012 with a gamble, signing former world champion Kimi Raikkonen and former test driver Romain Grosjean to their race seats for the season. The question about Kimi going into the season opener at Melbourne was, is he mentally ready after spending 2 years away from the sport in the World Rally Championship? His teammate too, Romain Grosjean of France, had questions that needed to be answered too, as he had previously raced with the team and their older guys of Renault F1, without much success. More often than not, the black and gold coloured cars were the best of the rest behind the three top teams, occasionally showing flashes of brilliance, and if not for the first stint in most races, they would have won more than one race this season. If things continue the way they did at the end of the season, then Lotus will have a successful 2013 campaign. Taking a look at the fortunes of Kimi Räikkönen now, and the 2007 World Champion had something to prove coming into this season, as he had been released from Ferrari 1 year early so they could make way for Fernando Alonso for 2010. Kimi seemed relaxed as the hunt for the title began, but many saw this as the reason Ferrari let him go. A decent start to the year with a 7th and a 5th was halted somewhat by the decision for him to come in for fresh rubber early in China. As a result, he dropped from 3rd to 14th, making it his worst race of the year. Fantastic performances next time out in Bahrain, Valencia and Hungary, where he finished in 2nd place in each case, clearly showed the Finn was well and truly back on form. But it was an inspired drive in the day-night race at Abu Dhabi where he took the first win for the team in its new guise of Lotus F1, famously quoting over the radio, "Shut up, I know what I'm doing," to his race engineers. Results like these enabled Kimi to take 3rd place in the 2012 World Championship. With a season like this, it's difficult to give Kimi a low score considering the 3 teams above him, so I will give Räikkönen a score of 8.5 out of 10. We'll now go over the season of Frenchman Romain Grosjean, and things didn't start off too well, as 2 DNFs in a row despite some brilliant qualifying performances led many to believe that the young Romain Grosjean was simply not cut for Formula 1. A 6th place in China was followed by a podium finish in Bahrain and a 4th place in Spain, showing that he was maturing. Podium finishes in Canada and Hungary were the highlights of his season, but then things took a turn for the worse as the drivers and teams returned from their mid-season break in Spa-Francorchamps, where he caused a first corner incident that was lucky not to injure any of his fellow drivers. This incident took out many others and may have been the cause for Alonso of Ferrari not winning this year's championship. As a result of this, Grosjean was handed a 1-race ban from the stewards, so he sat out the Italian Grand Prix. He returned to Singapore, saying the ban enabled him to see things from the outside. The break earned him a 7th place in Japan, but again 7th, but in Japan he was the centre of another first corner mishap as he hit the Red Bull of Mark Webber, causing the Aussie to spin. Grosjean ended this particular race in 19th, and he was quickly becoming this season's villain driver. Comments made by Mark Webber after the race in frustration suggested that there should be 2 starts, one for the 23 respectable drivers on the grid and the other for Grosjean himself. Either through bad judgment or so-called rookie mistakes, Grosjean finished the year clearly on the wrong side of the spotlight. Lotus have decided to stick with him for 2013, but one wonders for how long. As for Grosjean's score this season, several great races still can't take away the mistakes and accidents that he was involved in, so I'll be mindful when giving him my score for the year, which is a 7 out of 10. Now on to the Lotus Force India team to give them their full name, and in testing the VJM05 looked rather good. Powered of course by custom Mercedes engines which looked to be the strongest in the field. Things were looking up for Scotsman Paul di Resta and his new teammate Germany's Nico Hülkenberg, who had earned a race seat for 2012 after impressive testing performances. However, by the end of the first race in Australia, things seemed like they were going to continue the way they had gone since their entry into the sport in 2008. Results began to improve as the inter-team battle between di Resta and Hülkenberg was proving to be one of the more interesting teammate supremacy fights of the season. A fight that by the end of the season Hülkenberg had surprisingly won, and won rather easily for that matter. Force India's downfall, at least this season, was their race strategies, trying different ones to the other teams to try and gain an advantage. It's a gamble that works great when it pays off, but when it doesn't pay off, it leaves your drivers fighting from mid to rear end of the grid in most cases. This was sadly the norm for them this year. We'll take a look at the Scot Paul di Resta now, and an impressive rookie year where he consistently finished in the points and ahead of his more experienced teammate Adrian Sutil in 2011, earned him a drive for 2012 and also the team leader status for the year. However, poor results either through bad luck or bad strategy didn't enable the Scotsman to achieve a result greater than a 4th place in Singapore. Sadly for Paul, he was more often than not outpaced by Hülkenberg or fighting in the lower echelons of the grid. To improve on his debut year in the sport. As a result of his mixed second season, I have to be honest and give him a score that reflects his year. I'll say a 6.5 out of 10. On to German Nico Hülkenberg, and the 25-year-old couldn't get a race seat for love nor money in 2011, so he dug in at Force India, and after some testing triumphs from Friday practices and other official test sessions for Force India, he was called up for a race seat for 2012. A bad start in Melbourne was followed by a low-end points finish in Malaysia, but he didn't really start his teammate beating campaign into a 5th place finish in Valencia. Positive performances were the 4th in Belgium and a 5th in Brazil, earning him 63 points and 11th in the Drivers' Championship. But more importantly, Hülkenberg will be driving for the much improved Sauber team in 2013, which gives him the chance to improve on his impressive 2012 season. As for the 2012 season for Nico, I'll look at his results and give him an honest score of 7 out of 10. So that's about it for this second of 3 video reviews looking back on the 2012 World Championship season. Again, I apologise that this video was not uploaded a week after the last one as promised, but I hope that you'll forgive me and join me as I look at the lower end of the grid, so I'll see you all next time.